Hello, everyone. Holly said something very funny right as we hit live. Yeah. Welcome. Uh, Hopefully y'all remember Holly. Um,
Hi.
I Butt spot should be grounded. I agree.
Agreed. Butt
Uh,
spot. Don't talk about my grandma like that, butt spot. My grandma is fine, everybody. So something you should know about my grandmother is that she is bionic, um, in that she has
Me
had both
too.
of her hips replaced, right? And so the fracture happened below the hip area. Yeah, both your hips? Yeah. Well, you and my grandma have something in common.
Well, I'm waiting for my hips to be operated upon, but I currently have
Oh,
bionic spine.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, she is so the because her hips are titanium, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Oh, thank you, Paige. Yeah, this is my
Welcome,
new hat.
Armac.
Hi, Armac. Um, so she's fine. She's gonna be kind of off her feet for maybe a couple months, and but she's out of the hospital already. Surgery went really
Oh
well,
wow. Okay,
and
that's
everything's
really
good.
good.
Yeah, so I don't have to. I can breathe a little easier, but I mean, it was touch and go for a while. I didn't sleep a lot last night, so
Yeah,
your girl's exhausted. Bear with me. Well, this your girl. That your girl's probably exhausted too, but
I
I don't
am
know.
I am exhausted. It's true. Hello, alien sock puppet. Welcome. Um,
Yeah.
my dad is being transferred out of the hospital to a nursing home, which I have a lot of mixed feelings about. Um,
Is
but
that
it
a
doesn't seem like he's gotten worse, so that's good. It's just that all the hospitals in Orange County are fucking full.
yeah? So
So,
it's not like a nursing home like a hospice. It's like a nursing home for like recovery, right?
I'm honestly not sure. I have the name of it. I just didn't have a chance to look it up.
Okay. Well, I hope he gets better.
So, yeah.
I know it's
Oh
so
yeah,
uncomfortable.
James, my cousin is in the chat. Yeah, my dad's got the COVID. So, and my sister's like boxed up in her apartment because her roommates have it, and yeah. So, yeah. Super fun.
I heard I heard somebody call it the Rona the other day. I'm like, can we still call it that? It's a very 2020 thing. Is that something that's like still on the table? You got
Alien
the
Sock
Rona.
Puppet, he is stable from what I know. Um yeah, the I like updates are kind of few and far between, unfortunately. Like no one can visit him in the hospital or anything. So, um
Um,
yeah.
I want to do a quick shout out to, if you don't mind. I want to shout out this hat came from a maker on Etsy called Hook Prison Power. I'll put them in the chat. Not sponsored or anything, but they do really good work, and it's all Sailor Moon handcrafted stuff, which I love. So
Um,
I want to.
if you won't be able to post the link, but if you send it to Discord, I can post it. Yeah.
Oh, I just put in the
Oh,
chat
okay.
Hook Prison Power on Etsy.
That
If you
works.
just
That
search
works.
for it, yeah. So
Perfect.
I don't shout out a lot of people, but like I like featuring artists that work hard and make money on Etsy and other places, craftspeople. So,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
yourself, a little bit, you know. So,
I'm gonna move this over
yeah.
here. Nope, it's over here now.
Baron, I also heard it called Miss Rona, which like, oh, you got a date with Miss Rona. I see. You're 10 days staying with Miss Rona. I got you. But
Yeah.
I can't pull off that. I don't have that kind of cred to call it Miss Rona. Although I am part of the queer community, I feel like that's a little bit advanced queer, and I'm not quite there yet to rock that.
The levels, yeah.
I gotta get to 201 first before I get that. Um, yeah. So. But anywho, so tonight we're gonna talk about one of my favorite things. We're gonna talk about anime, Japanese animation, which I love.
And
So
I
I got
am
decked out. I got
very not familiar with, so I'm gonna be completely learning
yeah.
mostly, I
There's
think.
there's a little bit of history in here, a little bit of fun, but mostly it's just my chance to talk about But anyway, yeah, Baron, that's one of the names for it. I don't really kind of use that one because it seems a little, you know, not not good for our Asian friends. But yes, that is what we're talking about. Um,
Japanimation.
Anime, Japanese animation, yeah, all that. So, you know, but
Well, why don't you start with saying how you got into it? I'm curious about that.
sure. So
God
the
damn
first
it.
anime that I ever watched was an anime called Ninja Scroll. And Ninja Scroll is a movie. There's different things. They have movies which they call OVAs, which I'll figure out um, what OVA stand for. I think it's a video format, but those are movies essentially. And then they have series, anime series. And the first anime series I watched was a series called Ranma One Half. And Ranma One Half is very much tied to my transition in my life because it essentially is the story of this boy who goes to China with his father and trains in martial arts and falls into a cursed spring. And so at any point, whenever he gets splashed with cold water, he becomes a girl. Like that's the whole plot of the show, basically. So
Interesting. When was
um,
this made?
in the '90s,
In
this
the
is a '90s
90s.
anime, maybe even
Hi,
early '80s, late
Andrew.
'80s.
Nice to see you.
Yeah,
Go get food. That's
yeah.
important.
Yes, food is good. Eat food, everybody.
Vampire
Vampire, yeah,
Hunter
is great.
D.
Yeah. So
I've
I
never heard
started
of that one.
my anime. I started my anime journey kind of in the early '90s ish, but I was like I kept it very low because at the time nobody really liked anime. Like you had to be like super hardcore nerdy to love anime.
Yeah.
Unlike now where you find anime everywhere.
Yeah.
Back then it
My
was like, oh, you know what that is, you know?
my high school years were like right in the middle of that, where like
Hmm.
everyone knew that it existed, but like
Yeah,
the nerds liked it. Like there was a very specific like group of kids, and
yeah,
they were the anime kids.
yeah.
But like other than that, like people weren't really familiar with it. So that was I
And
graduated '06, so that's where it was at that point.
yeah. I mean, I graduated in the '90s, but like we all know what Sailor Moon was, but nobody really watched it. You know, we didn't have a chance to really check it out. Um, Sad that I didn't, because I would have loved to have watched it back then. I like the version now too,
It's
but
sometimes played at the like early morning daycare that my mom would drop me off at. Like it
yeah.
would sometimes be Sailor Moon, sometimes it would be Pokemon, and sometimes it would be Hercules, the animated series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pandizzle, we're going to talk about Toonami for sure tonight, because Toonami is massive for the anime boom in the US in the late '90s, early 2000s. And yeah, VHS passing definitely happened because you couldn't Rama One Half you couldn't get on DVD for a while, so you could only go to Blockbuster and rent the tapes if they had them, or you had to go to like the skeeziest store ever. And I remember one time I went to the skeezy store and found the Rama One Half box, and I took it home, and it was 100% a cover for porn.
Oh,
Like someone had swapped the DVD, the VHS out for a porn tape, and nobody noticed.
wow.
And and when I got home, I'm like, this is not Ramo and Half. This is not an anime. So
Aww. I love that you were disappointed by surprise bonus porn. I mean, not bonus
uh
if you didn't get what you wanted, but
Yeah.
yeah. I at the time Suncoast did have anime, but also FYE did. The Warehouse certainly did if you're from California, but it's um it's really tough to actually. It was tough to know that back then. It was tough to
yeah.
know that like we were like it, so. Pendizzle, you're learning Japanese? I am too. Barely. I'm just starting. I'm learning hiragana and katakana right now, and I'm doing badly at it. And I know some words, but not a ton. So I'm trying. But it's cool that you're in Japan, though. That's awesome.
I totally
I'm
forgot
very
you're in
jealous.
Japan right now. I'm a bad
What part
cousin.
of Japan are you in? Okay, that's cool.
But yeah,
Okay. All right.
I need to find an alternative to Duolingo because I accidentally broke my streak and it was at like 288 days, and it
Oh.
hurts too much to go back. So
Mhm.
I got to start over somewhere else. Like That's what it comes down to.
Well, I've been doing a kind of a pastiche of YouTube videos and a little bit of book learning here and there. I have a Japanese for Dummies book. I'm not even kidding you. It's right there. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't think you were. Like, that
and then
was
I'm
not a
actually
sentence that made me go, what? You? No.
I did do Duolingo for a hot second, and it's funny because they went through all the first letters and then taught you the colors and numbers, and you're like, great. And then they're like, here's a full ass sentence with kanji, and we're like, what the hell? Like they expect you to know all of the kanji in the first like two lessons. I don't know. Our friend Jocelyn knows much more than I do, and she
Yeah,
uses
she's been
Duolingo.
at it for a
But
long time.
she's using Duolingo and something else too that is really good for
I
Japanese.
can't. I can't remember the other one. Like grasshopper? Does that sound like one?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Possibly.
But yeah.
So yeah, let's jump into this, shall we? Let's
Yes.
go.
Okay.
All right. Ikemashou. All right. So Japan has actually. Let me ask you this, Danny. If I asked you when you thought anime started, when would you say anime began? Japanese animation.
I
Roughly,
would
ballpark.
guess. Do you mean like video style, or do you mean like manga style?
I mean, we're not talking about manga. We're talking purely about the animation.
Just animation.
I have
Okay.
a guess as well after she's.
Yeah. What do you
I'm
think?
gonna guess the 60s.
Okay. Solid guess. Right.
I'm
What do you
going
think?
to guess 1947, sometime around August.
That's also a good guess. And Baron says the 50s in the chat. The actual answer, the first anime that we still have available is from 1907.
Wow.
Actually,
Nice.
it's a
I
cellular
was almost
animation.
like, I kind of want to
Yeah.
say like silent era, but I don't know if that's being like too dramatic about it.
Uh, if you saw the poster for this particular show, this live stream, I actually put this picture on there. The first one, it's all the way to the right. It's a little boy in a red cap in a schoolboy outfit, and it's called Katsuro Shashin, which means activity photo, and it's just a kid drawing on a board, just basically kind of drawing. It's real basic, rudimentary. It's along the lines of like how we would have like American animation and from that time period as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's actually really interesting because at this point in time, as we kind of talked about in the baseball episode, Western culture wasn't really big in Japan at this time. So we actually have like
Wait, this is at the 19
this is 1907. This is
Okay.
early 20th century. We have this. So we didn't find this film until 2005. We didn't know it existed.
Oh, wow.
Like before that, we did find things from like 1916, 1917. But 1907, we found this and was like, oh, this is animation from Japan. It's Japanese animation. Now, it looks absolutely nothing like what you and I and everybody probably thinks with, big eyes and things like that. But
Yeah.
it definitely is a Japanese child writing kanji on a chalkboard.
So I have a
very short.
question. What makes something anime? Is it like it has to be from Japan or it has to be in Japanese? Because like I know that like Avatar isn't considered anime even though it's kind of drawn in the same style.
Right, because it's made in
Yeah.
America.
Yeah, so is it just that it has to
Yeah.
be made in Japan or are there animes
Yeah,
that are made here?
Essentially, the because this is kind of a hot debate thing because a lot of people do actually consider Avatar to be anime, but the accepted definition of it at this point is that it's animation made in Japan for a Japanese audience that eventually will go past that. But there's no set style anymore. For a while, there was like a specific style that was the anime style or the Japanese animation style, but that has gone out the window as we've gotten new forms of animation available. Things like computer-aided graphics and things like that have found their way into modern anime. But really, the only accepted thing is that Japanese animation comes from Japan, and then anything else that's in that style, like things like Samurai Jack or Well, actually, not samurai jack. Afrojack would probably be more acceptable. Things like the Animatrix, a lot of that were from America or from Europe in the Japanese style, but it's only Japanese. It's only anime style. It's not anime or anime inspired. It's not anime proper. So.
Paige Lars, did who have a blue sailor suit? Who are you talking about?
The kid in the first anime.
Oh, the kid in the first anime.
Yeah,
Got
it's actually so it's a white sailor suit, but it's kind of a blued out celluloid, so it looks like it's a teal if you look at it. Yeah.
So I want to make sure I understand the anime definition here. It's basically that it's only anime if it comes from the Japan
region of the
region
world.
of the world. Otherwise, it's just sparkling animation.
It's just sparkling animation, yeah, basically, right? I knew
where you were going because I heard the pride.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't actually asking a question. You were like, so to clarify. And I'm like, oh, I know what he's about to say.
I knew he was going to say it too, and I'm like, I'm not stopping this train. I want this to go. I like this joke a lot. But yeah, so that's basically where we're at. The other stuff that we kind of found is really more from like the middle 19 teens. There's a lot of really rudimentary, almost flipbook style animations.
Okay.
We're just kind of like seeing like things like images of very famous Japanese poems or long tales, stories of samurai and things like that, like Junichi Koichi in 1917. It's like a samurai sort of fighter, right? So we have a lot of those. We have a lot of little things like that. Nothing major, but it's all like, if you compare it to where, and I'm going to do a lot of this because I compare a lot of my anime knowledge to America at the time.
Okay.
If you compare it to where we are in America at that time versus there, it's actually not incredibly far apart at this point. America's about to go within the 20s, 30s, and 40s into this like amazing animation renaissance and pull out a bunch of stuff that Japan is not going to get into very much. But at this point, they're pretty on the line.
Got it.
1923 happened, and 1923 there was a massive earthquake in Tokyo. For those who don't know, Japan is on the Pacific Rim, and anywhere on the Pacific Rim, whether it's there or even here in Southern California, Alaska, Hawaii, Hawaii, I guess, they're susceptible to earthquakes, heavy earthquakes, a lot of damage. And when you're in 1923 and there's not like earthquake proofing or anything, things burn down, things get destroyed. And one of the major
it's like San Francisco, right? Like first is that the buildings break and start fires, but also the water lines break, and so they can't put out the fires because they can't get water. Like I'm assuming like most giant earthquakes have that kind of problem. Like, did it wipe out the whole city like that, or how bad was it?
It destroyed everything. I mean, it was bad. I mean, the danger of earthquakes in that time is not necessarily building destroying. It is, but the biggest danger at that point after that is the fires that come after it. And this is true for San Francisco as well. So when you see that things have all been destroyed, and you're like, why didn't they just dig it out of the building? Well, because the building burnt down.
Right.
Everything's gas lamps, and the gas lamps are all lighting things to high heaven, and so a lot of the stuff that we had got burnt down. Some of the stuff was saved by the virtue of the fact that they were just kind of shipped around the country to smaller places, and so they had like a couple of things here and there, and like records of small towns that they were able to save. But the great majority of where they were is destroyed.
Baron Kraken, I think that would be the difference between Japan and, because the golden age of animation and Renaissance is more of a Disney thing, although it spreads to other places like Fox and DreamWorks and stuff. I think DreamWorks? No, DreamWorks didn't exist yet. But like Fox did like Anastasia, like so I would imagine that like it's just a term used in both rather than it applying to the same actual thing.
I mean, you have to remember too that this is 1923. Steamboat Willie hasn't even come out yet at this point in this timeline. Steamboat Willie doesn't come out for another 4 years in America, and we all know how very basic and rudimentary that is, right? It's super basic. So,
and yet super
imagine,
mind-blowing to everyone.
And also the end of copyright expiration.
Yeah, hypothetically, copyright should end this year for Steamboat Willie, but I don't think that's going to happen. I imagine they're going to find some law loophole, but... Yeah. Anywho, so 1923 they're rebuilding. Disney is starting to make its way across the water as well. When in late 1920s, early 1930s, you're seeing a lot of stuff from the U.S. come in, and not a lot of stuff being produced locally because all the animation studios were destroyed in the earthquake, and they haven't really been rebuilt to the point where it's feasible. So there's kind of like a dip down at that point in animation, and there isn't really a lot that's kind of produced. Maybe a thing or two in there. Really, most of the stuff that's from that time is essentially educational films, you know.
Welcome, Raffle Iron Chef, and yeah, both Raffle Iron Chef and Baron Kraken have nailed it. Steamboat Willie Remastered is definitely on its way, and they don't need a loophole because they own the lawmakers. Yep.
Remastering it won't do a damn thing.
They have to do like some new thing. Like that's why there's so many live action remakes happening and stuff.
That has nothing to do with copyright. It has to do with other rights.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not a copyright lawyer.
They literally have to change the laws of copyright to make it work. There's a really good movie called it's actually a series called Everything is a Remix. It was on YouTube for a while. I don't know if it's ever got a release, but it's
I have heard of that. Yeah,
it's really good, and they do a really good job talking about copyright law and how Disney has completely fucked it. You know,
yeah.
Single-handedly fucked it. But it's out there. If you get a chance to watch that, it's really, really good. I don't know if it's still on. It was a long time ago. I mean, we're talking about 10 years ago since I saw it, but
yeah.
Obviously, things have changed even since then.
Also, most of my knowledge about the copyright stuff comes from people inside Disney. So I don't know how people view it outside Disney.
We're going to see something very interesting this year, because this year Winnie the Pooh goes under copyright, and Winnie the Pooh is not owned by Disney.
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh's a licensed character. So odds are pretty good that we're going to see non-Disney Winnie the Pooh this year, because regardless of anything that they do, they can't. Not Jamberry.
Ow! Can you do the dog?
Yeah, it's already out there, right? So we're going to see a lot. Just like Peter Pan. We saw Jamberry with Peter Pan a couple years ago. We saw a lot of non-Disney Pan films come out.
Yeah.
We're going to see a couple of Welcome to Pooh corners popping up from like other companies who want that sweet, sweet Winnie the Pooh money.
Yeah, and how many people are really going to be aware of the fact that it's not officially Disney? You know?
Yeah.
However, the Disney version of Winnie the Pooh will still be protected because that's a separate copyright from the licensed character. So
correct.
They won't be able to just go out and like draw an exact copy of the Disney Winnie the Pooh and go, I'm making my own, because Disney will just clap down and go, no, lawsuit, bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they can't stop the bear because the bear design was part of the books, but they can stop you from using a little red half crop top t-shirt, you know, or a jar of honey.
Anything that is very clearly inspired by the Disney version, they can stop. But if you go, it's like, no, I'm just following what's literally in the book, and it's not inspired by your stuff, then you're fine.
Yeah. So 1939 comes along. 1939 might ring a bell to you history fans.
I think a couple things happened that year. Nothing huge though, right?
Nothing major. But Japan does get involved in a little thing called World War II.
Heard of it?
The sequel. Yeah.
This time it's personal.
They're involved because they're trying to like basically conquer all of the Southeast Asia at the time.
Yeah.
And they decide that anime would be a good tool for propaganda. So they use Japanese animation for propaganda. Now, before you say, how could they do this? Oh, no, we did that, too.
Yeah, no, like,
Donald
Disney
Duck.
did total, yeah. Disney absolutely did propaganda.
Yeah.
I mean, so did Dr. Seuss. Like,
Wait, Japan started earlier than that in 1937.
They did, but there's a law in 1939 that actually promoted the films for army use. So while they were part of the war effort, their own war effort beforehand, 1939 was when they're like, we need to use this for this. So that's why I say 39 is part of that. You're right though. They were involved earlier than that. It's called the film law of 1939.
What if all instances of Winnie the Pooh converge on sentience? So are you asking, like, are all Winnie the Poohs sentient?
Are you talking about a Winnie the Pooh multiverse? And enter the Poohverse? I would be so down for that.
Cinematic universe, definitely.
Yeah. It would get pretty intense.
I know, Pendizzle. We're talking. There's a big difference between wartime Japan and modern Japan, obviously. But also, even back then, like a lot of regular common folks in Japan didn't approve of the war. They didn't want to be part of it. They just were kind of conscripted into it by higher powers, powers that be. So, into the Pooh Hall. Where's Buttbot? We need him.
Oh, but Buttspot went on timeout earlier. I don't know.
Now this would be a perfect time for Buttspot to jump in, but
I'm talking about all drawings of Winnie the Pooh someday evolving self-awareness in horrifying and world-ending fashion. Oh, the obvious reading of that. I'm sorry I overcomplicated it.
That's very SCP there. I like it.
Wartime Imperial Japan was a bit intense to say the least. I've heard, like that's the descriptor I've heard mostly, but bit intense.
There's a TikTok out there that is that this girl found an old like Japanese soldiers like memory book, like photo album, and it was in an antique store, and she doesn't have enough information to identify the person, so she can't find their family or anything. But it has a lot of. She had it translated. It has a lot of like really strong poetry.
Oh, that's so cool.
And a lot of the poetry was like, this is a war that I don't want to be a part of, that nobody wants to be a part of. We just want to go home to our families. That's all.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's like kind of like the major sentiment for all soldiers, I think, is that most of them don't want to be involved in the wars they're in, but they feel like they have to, either by, you know, some form of honor or duty, or the fact that they, you know, they just feel like they have to for whatever their reasons are.
Yeah.
And a lot of them just want it to end, you know. So that's right, Paige. That's why. Yeah, Imperial Japan was crazy. It was not crazy. It was a wild time for sure. I don't like using crazy. That's not the right adjective, but it was definitely not what we think of Japan today. So of course, the war. Hi, Smeagol. Give Smeagol some love. I gotta give you some. I'm gonna push the button to give Smeagol. Sounds like. There you go. Redeem for love. Go.
Smeagol, you get so much love. Holly gives you love because you're so cute and good. You're so cute and good. I love some good juxtaposition, you know.
All right, so we
can you do dog again, just in case people have joined?
Yeah, I'll do dog again. Oh, never mind. You do dog.
Oh, God damn it.
Smeagol's a lovely dog when someone's not growling.
A black cherry and soy glazed chicken thighs over polenta with ground perdone. Wow, that sounds so good.
Stop making Smeagol growl. It's hard to talk over.
That is, yes, a struggle that I'm familiar with.
Look how she's sitting. She's so good. She's sitting
good,
so patiently.
Also so loud.
So very sweet.
We're getting into
control my child.
We're getting into the beginnings of what we start to know as Japanese animation finally, because after the war is over, we have the beginnings of something we talked about in the last episode, the Japanese economic miracle, right?
Okay.
A lot of people from from different places helped out to make sure that Japanese businesses were successful, and in such cases they were. And some of those places were animation studios. So most of the studios are actually still in business, including one called Toei Doga, which
Wow.
will eventually become Toei Animation, who created.
That's really surprising for yeah, like considering how brutal that war hit everyone involved in it. Like that's kind of wild that they were able to keep going.
I definitely recommend people looking up the Japanese economic miracle and reading up on it, because that is the blueprint for how to fix your country for a number of years after a huge disaster or a giant war, because they did it right, and then they have a lot of to show for it. Now, obviously, nobody's perfect forever, and just problems and problematic stuff, but
Yeah,
for sure, they definitely started a lot of things and institutions that we know of today. So Toei at Doga.
oh my gosh, Rafael,
They,
all I've had today is a couple of scoops of ice cream. Stop that.
Oreos.
And some Oreos. I had 2 Oreos. Rafael and Chef is describing the amazing dinner they made, and it needs to stop. I'm kidding. It sounds amazing. Some of the oldest companies in the world are Japanese family-owned businesses that have been around for literally hundreds of years. Hi, Retorku. That's cool.
Yeah. A lot of companies have been around for a long, long time. Like Nintendo, for example. Nintendo started off as a playing card company in like the 1800s, right?
Yeah.
I forgot that.
Fun fact about a little side trip. Fun fact that I learned about Nintendo and what they used to do. So for a long time, Western style playing cards were not legal in Japan. They were banned. So you couldn't have kings, queens, jacks, aces, anything like that. You couldn't have anything with numbers on it or any kind of Western imagery. So they created a version of the game of those cards for Japan called Hanafuda cards. Hanafuda cards are basically plants. There's some symbols on it. It's very, and I've actually looked up how to play Hanafuda, and it's actually kind of fun,
It's Western playing cards without the Western, basically.
Yeah, because you couldn't gamble. You weren't allowed to gamble in Japan. So, but they still sell Hanafuda cards now, and they're gorgeous. They have some amazing, beautiful decks with all kinds of great imagery. When I go to Japan, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find a Hanafuda deck that I want to buy, because I love them. And I figured out how to play a little bit, and it's a little tougher, but it's fun. So, and Nintendo was a company that started off as a company that made these Hanafuda cards. That's what they were, and they pivoted towards consumer products and things like that until much later into the 80s, when they started to dabble in video games and stuff like that. But for the longest time, Nintendo was a different thing. So a lot of these older companies may have, I mean, some of them obviously, like the newspapers and things, stayed newspapers, and the railways stayed railways, but
yeah,
a lot of the companies pivoted partway through to their existence, or multiple times through, to make sure that they survived, because their families were dependent on it. These are family-owned businesses. Sometimes.
I mean, it's basically like when e-commerce started, and how the brick and mortar stores, if they wanted to survive, had to like adapt.
Yeah, the ones that pivoted at the .com bubble survived, like Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon pivoted, and look where they're at. They were originally just a bookseller on the internet, and now they sell everything. So and also are terrible human beings. But whatever.
And our Skynet, but that's another.
Baron actually, they only partially own Pokemon. Pokemon is not a Nintendo specific company. That's owned by a company called Game Freak. Game Freak is the Pokemon people, and they could at any point say, we don't want to be on Nintendo anymore, and jump ship, and you can see Pokemon games other places, but they hold all the licenses. That's why you see pop figures for Pokemon, and you don't see pop figures of any other Nintendo products, because it's not a Nintendo product. They just happen to have a long license with it. So, and yes, rhetorically, there are collectible card games from the 18th century. Well, at least collectible card decks, I would say. Although finding an old one like that is really tough. A lot of them are modern. Pokemon is based on book collecting. That's right. It's based on book collecting and the original protagonist was based on the person that created it. So and it's all based on his hometown and like all of his friends. So yeah, Pokemon's a great story too. Game Freak is a fun story because he's just this kid that like he made a magazine that talked about games that he liked, and he's like, I can make a game. He did it.
It's so funny how like companies will have all these varieties, but one becomes like an international zeitgeist, like Pokemon, but most people would never have heard of any of the company's other stuff. Most people here, or like outside of the country. The what? Sorry?
It happens more often in Japan than anywhere. I mean,
that makes sense.
I truly believe that like the American work ethic is not actually the American work ethic. It's actually the Japanese work ethic that we just kind of said was ours. But like, you could actually build yourself from nothing in Japan and to be successful, which I don't think you could do here, really.
Not anymore, at least.
Not without getting extraordinarily lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, or having mom and dad with some extra cash, which happens in Japan too. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's families, but you could bootstrap yourself there. So. But anyway, that's way off topic. So Koei Animation wants to be the Disney of the East. In fact, they tout themselves as that until Disney says don't anymore.
The Disney of what?
The East.
Of the East.
Yeah. And so they start making things a lot smaller animation stuff, nothing huge, but like for example, the Tale of the White Serpent is theirs. They had a story called Princess Knight.
Okay.
Like stuff that you probably haven't heard of, but this is like the precursor to
Princess Knight, as in KN or N?
KNIGHT. Like, yeah. I
like that. Okay. Like, because both of those would have worked, like the Night Princess or the Night.
Exactly.
Princess. Yeah. Okay.
There's a rival company called Mushi Productions. Mushi Productions definitely has produced some things that you possibly have heard of, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. Mushi Productions produce things like Astro Boy, Kimba the White Lion,
Oh, they made Lion King.
They essentially made the Lion King, yeah.
That's
Kimba
amazing.
the White Lion is a Japanese animation originally. And Astro Boy is one of the first major large series to make its way from a manga into an animated series as well.
Welcome back, Andrew. Sorry, there's a delay between my phone and computer feeds. Want to say two things. There's a Japanese hotel that was sold in 2006, but until then was a 1700-year-old company. Wow. And why haven't I eaten? I have like GI issues from like painkillers that I took in the past, like when I was waiting for surgery for 1.5 years. And so I will get very nauseous, and so eating becomes difficult. And today there was nothing in the apartment that I could manage. So but yeah, so that's why. Pokemon is based on bug collecting. That makes sense. Art cards go back before Picasso, definitely collectible. So in Europe, small collectible portraits sometimes on the inside of snuff boxes go way back to the 1400s. Yeah, you'd get like your like beloved, like a little miniature portrait and stuff. Like when Queen Elizabeth I died, it was discovered that one of the rings that she always wore, had little miniature portraits of her and her mom Anne Boleyn in it. And so it was just like a little like flip top locket that was like disguised as just a regular ring. So like little tiny portraits that people like carry around as like, like the way that we have like wallet cards before phones were a thing, and now we have phones.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would 100% consider Hanafuda cards to be collectible cards. I know that if you get a set that's old, it's a collectible item, just like anything is that has any age, it's collectible. Yeah. But they didn't make them to be like a Magic card or a Pokemon card set. It's just like they drew cards. They drew cards to get around the laws so people could do gambling without gambling. It's really kind of what that was. So, but yeah, I agree with you. Honestly, if you get one of those European snuff box cards from the 1400s and you own it, you're a millionaire. Either because you bought it and you're a millionaire, or you are one you didn't know. But...
I'm just imagining like Japanese playing card speakeasies. Like,
yeah, they would probably do it at home most likely, but yeah, they would. It would be gambling was bad in for a while, and then the emperor was like, no dice, and they stopped.
Yeah.
You know, when the emperor
There
said something, you do it. You
there
know,
were
or
pinball
whatever.
speakeasies in New York City for a while when the mayor
That's so
outlawed
fun.
pinball machines because he decided it led to depravity and like idle boys or whatever. So
Yeah.
pinball arcade speakeasies were an actual thing, and one of them still exists, and it's hidden behind like a laundromat. And
Hey,
I have not visited it yet, but it's on the list eventually. Yeah.
when I come back, you should tell me where it is. If you can
Yeah.
go, go. But if
Yeah,
you can't
totally.
go, then tell me. Oh yeah,
Um,
pachinko. I'm a weirdly obsessed with pachinko because it's like pinball meets gambling. Uh,
okay.
so here's the funny thing about pachinko. So gambling is still illegal in Japan. You can't really gamble there.
Oh, really? That's a surprise.
Yeah. But obviously the Yakuza,
Oh, there's
you
Butt
know,
Spot.
wants yeah.
That's the only reason
Yakuza
I would
wants to
ever enter pinball parlor. I'm not like I have no interest in pinball, but I'm not like averse to it. But I would absolutely go into the pinball speakeasy, and I'm a big fan of blue butt skirt guts. Yeah. So hey, MK Ultra, welcome to the history of
Yes,
anime.
what's up? How are you? So pachinko is to get around the idea of gambling. You can't put money directly into the machine. What you do is you go and you buy the balls. They're little metal balls, and you put them into the top of the machine, and it pays out more balls. And when you're done, you take those balls and you go outside of the parlor, down the street, and down a hallway to a place that redeems the balls, completely separate establishment, and they pay you per ball. So it's like if each ball was like a yen, if you had 100, if you maybe not a yen, maybe like 5 yen or whatever it is, they would count up all the balls with a counter and give you the amount that's there. So it's like a workaround for gambling.
That's
And there is some
clever.
skill involved in some pachinko machines when they have like actual like flippers that like can like a pinball machine, but mostly
Mm-hmm.
it's just like hope it lands in the right spot so I can get more balls and I can use the balls to play.
Say balls
You
again.
know, but balls. But that's not gambling. That's not gambling to them. That's just playing pachinko. And also from what I've heard, and Pandizzle maybe can echo this. I heard that there's so very smoky in those pachinko halls. Like, yeah. Oh, we do. That's cool. Yeah, there's really no way to know how to play pachinko. It's just drop the balls in the holes and hope you get more balls. It's really what it is. Balls. Did I
Balls
say balls?
everywhere. They
I
take
don't think I
bills
said
now,
balls.
but I have no idea how it works.
Yeah, I will be playing pachinko when I go there. I will be doing crane games when I go there for sure. I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna have fun. So we've reached the 1960s. Hey,
Hooray!
1960s. This is the time where anime starts to find its way to the US somehow. Because in 1963, we see the first anime broadcast in the United States.
Maybe that's
It's
why I
produced,
thought the 60s.
it's Astro Boy. Astro Boy, um, it starts to show in some forms because they found a way to translate it. Not a lot, but they definitely have. Also, a series like Wolf Boy Ken. This is when Kimba the White Lion comes over. There's a very important show called Sally the Witch, which is Sally the Witch is the first of the magical girl genre that I love a
I was
lot.
just gonna say, that sounds like something that you love.
Well, Sailor Moon is a magical girl, as is Cardcaptor Sakura and Madoka Magica and a bunch of other ones. Anytime you have someone that transforms magically into a powerful figure via magic,
Mm,
that is a magical girl. And Sally the Witch was the first one.
okay.
Started broadcasting in 1966. Some other ones you may have heard of: Speed Racer. I know
Yeah,
you've heard of
that
Speed
was my
Racer, right?
dad's favorite.
Speed Racer is definitely Japanese animation,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, my
That's
dad
from
loved it.
1966. Princess Knight starts airing an anime adaptation. It's one of the first. So there's a couple of terms I need to kind of go over. There's shonen and shoujo. Shonen is anime for, oh, actually, it's genre for boys, and so shonen is, and shoujo is for girls, right?
Okay.
So like Speed Racer would be a shonen because it's designed for. I mean, obviously this is
Yeah.
not the the most gender free thing, but it's Japan.
Yeah.
So we have shows like that, and this is where we start to see the first anime that's split off for different things. So we start to see Speed Racer as like a shonen. Sally the Witch is a shoujo. Princess Knight is a shoujo. It's for girls.
Okay.
And then we start to see those kind of split off and make their way into different parts of the country there for the most part. Then, right? So we'll say shonen and shoujo more later on when we talk about more titles, but that's just important to know those words because you're like, oh, it's a shonen, and you're like, what the hell's that? It's for boys.
Okay.
Oh.
I may or may not keep it straight. We'll find out.
That's okay. You can ask me and I'll tell you. But
okay.
So the 1970s rolls along. Toei is officially Toei at this point. But Mushi Production, done, bankrupt, out.
Oh no.
And they split off and make two animation companies that are still around today and producing stuff that I absolutely love. One of which is Sunrise and the other which is Madhouse. Sunrise produces shows like Cowboy Bebop.
Okay.
In the 90s, and Madhouse does all kinds of stuff. They're the ones who are responsible for Hunter x Hunter, which is another show that I absolutely love. And then also we start to see this is there's a anime called Lupin the Third. Lupin the Third is a kind of a thief shystery guy.
Okay.
It's like a heist show. And they have both. They've made manga, they've made the actual comics, but they've also leaped over into anime and movies. And one of the movies is a movie called the Lupin the Third, The Castle of Caostrogo, which I can't pronounce. And it was directed by Hayao Miyazaki. That was Miyazaki's first directing role was on a Lupin the Third film. Lupin the Third has been going in certain forms now today. Like there's Lupin the Third movies that were made like 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, just like anything, if you have a property that is really successful and it's kind of timeless. Although Lupin the Third is very much a product of the 60s and 70s, you can kind of tell by like the costumes. Also, terrible treatment of women in these shows. By the way, like not great.
Yeah.
But in like Lupin especially, they definitely start that. So. So we have these two. They have Toei Animation, Madhouse, and Sunrise that are putting together a lot of stuff in the 70s, and they start to create different genres. We start to see things like the gunpla genres, like which are mecha genres, like giant robots that fight things in space.
Okay.
I'm sure you've seen like Mobile Suit Gundam or Macross or things like that.
Yes.
That are like, these are giant robots that fight things,
Yeah.
Very much shonen. Gatchaman is another thing.
Gatchaman?
Another one. Yeah.
Like Mon thing... like Pokemon?
Gatchaman like man, but like
okay.
Mon, it's not. Yeah. Pokemon, by the way, is a combination of two
Pocket Monster.
Pocket Monster, yeah. Gatchaman is a combination of words that I don't 100% know, but it's two words together. It's kind of like, okay, so there's these things in Japan called gachapons. Gachapons are like little vending machines where you put in like some money and like you get a little ball out of it.
Yeah.
And the ball uses something cool. And they're called that because when you turn the crank, it goes gacha, and then when the thing hits the pan, it goes pon. So it's gachapon.
That's funny.
And so like Gatchaman is kind of a play off of Gachapon, a Gachapon,
That's cute.
But and then one Mazinger Z is another early one that's early 70s. And we're talking about Gundam as well too.
Cool.
So by this point, like there's a ton of anime shows, and because this is the point in time where they realized that like anime is fun for everybody. People like it. It's fun for girls and it's fun for boys and it's fun for adults and it's fun for kids.
Like Slinky and Legos.
Yeah. So like in America, we see a lot of like sitcoms that have gained kind of notoriety. In
Mhm.
Japan, they see more anime shows with that because of this. Because while they did have programming, a lot of the programming they had on television was usually variety hours or news or Japanese stories, and then everything else that was more thing would be like anime, anime and manga.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So then we get into the second golden age. The original golden age being when they first started in the 50s with Mushi Productions. But the second golden age, this is the 1980s. This is
Okay.
when things get. This is when things start to come over and start to really be known around the world. So the show Gatchaman is remade into a show called Battle of the Planets and sent over to America to be shown on Saturday morning cartoons. So we start seeing Saturday morning cartoons as anime. Also
Okay.
Robotech, which was huge then. Mobile Suit Gundam came over, a lot of that. But we're starting to see more. Mostly the stuff that's coming over is shonen, boys.
When was Power Rangers? I know that's not anime, but like I also know that like they took the Japanese footage and just like spliced it in between the American scenes. Is that a thing? Or
Yeah, that's from the 90s.
that's the 90s? Okay, I wasn't sure if that was the 80s or the 90s, but I know obviously I know Power Rangers was huge in the 90s because I lived through the 90s, but I wasn't sure when it started. Yeah.
And the reason that we have so many space things coming over from Japan to the US around this time is because this is around the time of Star Wars. So Star Wars is super popular. People in the US are like, we need any content that has to do with space whatsoever.
Yeah.
Japan just happens to all these big robots and space things. Boom. Nailed
Yeah.
it. Perfect.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Also at this time, Miyazaki leaves the companies that he's with, that's doing Lupin and things, and starts his own company called Studio Ghibli in 1984, I think. And his first movie with them is Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, which I don't love, but people
I don't
love
think
it.
I've even heard of that one. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's very artsy. It actually Patrick Stewart's voicing it, which is awesome. But in the American,
I love Sir Patrick.
It's very out there. Like plants have, can kill you with spores and things. Anyway. So we're seeing that come over. We're seeing a lot of the Ghibli stuff come over. Ghibli eventually starts with works a deal with Disney, and so
Nausicaa to be adequate.
Oh,
did Power Rangers rip off Voltron?
Voltron. I would say Voltron ripped off like Macross and Robotech, but yeah, I guess so. Basically, all of anyone that has like a connected bots and things are kind of the same genre, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the thing, Misty, with a lot of anime is that like you see this in everything.
Welcome, Misty Bat.
When it's done in Japan, it's done with a very Japanese mentality, and when it's brought over to the U.S., and we'll get into this when we talk about Sailor Moon a little bit. When it's into the U.S., they change it to be more American, I guess is the thing. So they change anything that has to do with sex, and they don't talk about anything that would have to do with any kind of alternate lifestyle, or
God
they take out
forbid.
every reference to Japanese things that they don't think an American would know. So instead of having the opportunity to learn about Japanese culture through these shows, people just go, "Oh, this is just another cartoon," right?
Yeah.
When if they watch the original thing, they'd be like, "Oh, that's what they do in their high school. That's why they wear the sailor outfits, whatever."
Yeah,
So,
I never, like, definitely not as a kid. I never really thought about it. Like, it was just a thing that appeared one day.
Yeah. Which company got attacked, Andrew? What do you mean? I don't follow.
Which company got attacked?
don't...
Like a Japanese company got attacked?
Like, what do you mean? OVA means original video animation, by the way. We talked about what OVA there. But...
James, do you remember that I was not allowed to watch Power Rangers because it was too violent? And now there you are saying it could have been so much more violent? Oh my goodness. Ah! Hello!
What was that?
That is a raid. We just got raided by TYT with 163 people.
What's up,
Hello.
everybody? Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
guys.
everyone. What's up, Raiders?
Welcome. This is my friend Holly, who's guesting today, teaching about the history of anime.
How's it going?
So,
Yeah.
hey, Atomic Elbow. Hey, everyone.
Hi, everyone. This is cool.
Welcome.
I'm so very new to like Twitch that I don't know what I've never seen a raid happen before, so this is badass. So hello, everybody from DYT. This is rad.
Thank you for the follow, Yvonne Trey, and Jen Sent, and Akamu36. Wow. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let me just like give like the little like spiel of what this is a special week with Holly being like the guest presenter, teacher person.
Yeah.
I don't know. But this is the show is called Okay So, and it's generally me talking about a specific history topic completely unscripted, like from memory, while I paint Funkos.
Yeah.
Right now I'm working on the Salt Dragon, who is getting literally encrusted with salt. Here's its writer. You may have heard of her. Hold on, I'll put it on this one. There we go. And her kicking Ben Shapiro's ass outfit.
Yeah, kick Ben Shapiro's ass all day long.
Yeah, she went and debated him, and like, she's amazing. But yeah, so that's what we're working on right now, and Holly is teaching us about the history of anime. And
so we actually just got into the 80s right now, so we're
good timing.
We're up on it. But this is like the big time for anime, and the big time for anime to find its way a lot of stuff into the Americas. We see a lot of shows that we know now start up in this time, and a lot of the stuff from Ghibli is mostly from the early stuff. OVAs happen this time. OVAs are basically like movies, essentially.
Okay.
They're designed to be on video, so they're designed for a video format.
Thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub, Rhetoriku.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know. I'm thrown off by the raid. But so you start to see more films like this. Like Ninja Scroll was one I talked about. Ghost in the Shell, the films come out, and then there's a series later for that too. We start to see things like Akira. Akira comes out.
I almost made a really horrible joke, but then I realized not everyone would know I was joking. I was gonna say, "Oh, with Scarlett Johansson, right?"
How dare you? Don't.
I know, and I know. Yeah. That's why I gave a disclaimer before saying it.
So with the start of OVAs is also kind of the start of hentai as well.
Okay.
I would be remiss to not talk about hentai, although I don't partake in hentai, but they're definitely there. Because on TV, obviously you couldn't put that kind of stuff, but on a video you can. So that's what they did. So,
sure.
Yeah, Fist of the Stars is at that point too.
Did the whole like having to pixelate everything thing start immediately, or did that happen later?
I don't think they have to pixel. I think they just do. Oh. I don't think it's required. I've seen some that don't, but yeah. There's a lot of sports anime that comes out at this time too. Things like Slam Dunk, Prince of Tennis. Those are good. Also, we start to see, because this is the time where we are starting to see more and more video games come out from Japan. We're starting to see more things that kind of tie in across the video game kind of world. So you see things like Nintendo games come out that are based on anime, or Famicom games for Japan. Ice Shield 88 is also a very good one.
Oh my goodness, we got a hype train.
Hype train! Beep,
look at that! Both times that you're on and a hype train happens. How wonderful!
This is awesome. I'm learning so much about this stuff, you guys. Love it.
And it's at 69%.
Hooray!
Nice.
We are coming into my favorite time of anime, the stuff that I started watching, which is the 1990s. This is the big stuff.
The Holly hype train. Oh, I love that. The Holly hype train. Oh, thank you, J-Tide, and welcome. Thank you, Paige Lars.
Yeah.
You guys are great. This is wonderful.
love it.
So
Holly, you
in
get
the 90s,
so much love.
I
Oh,
love
an
this.
old school anime nerd has entered the chat. Awesome. Oh, thank you, Mary
No, you're
Animal. Thank you, Misty Bat. Thank you, Misty Bat again.
so I will say, Sploot, like I am not an old school anime person. I have watched anime for a while, but I started watching in the 90s. So like the stuff that's like the 80s and before, while I definitely know exists and I talk about it, it's not my era. The 90s are my era. That's where I come from. So I guess I'm kind of old school. The 90s are 30 plus years ago now, so right? But not as old school as most. But
What was that sound? I didn't see what went with it.
I think that was just the Misty Bat.
Oh, okay. It was just belated.
Taking a minute to show up.
yeah.
Late
So
80s for you.
So at this point, anime is having kind of a decline, right? There's companies that were started in the 80s called Gainax. Gainax, they kind of fall apart and get bought up by other people.
That is such an unpleasant word. I do not care for it. Like, it sounds like gynecologist, almost. Like, it's got that vibe.
Gainax. It's Gainx. Like Gaijin, but Gainax.
Ah, I see.
Anyway. But you see some big shows, huge shows come out this time. I mentioned Cowboy Bebop earlier. That's a little bit later in the 90s. Mid-90s, we see shows like Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is Evangelion is kind of like you take like the Macross type things, and then you good night, Paige.
Good night, Paige. You have a doctor's appointment in the morning. Oh, goodness. Well, good luck with the doctor's appointment. Let us know how it goes, please.
Oh, Outlaw Star is so good. So yeah, it's Blue. Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop, and Trigun are part of the big three. You know, if you watch one and you watch them all, you feel like you're watching the same universe. It's so good. But Trigun is very fun. They're all very funny too, which is kind of cool.
Thank you for the follow, MD4 shoes.
I actually don't like Evangelion, Rhetoriku. Like I know I get a lot of heat for that, but I've tried watching it on multiple occasions, and I'm not into big, robot fights, mecha fights. And Evangelion obviously doesn't have a ton of those. It's really a lot more like emotional, psychological stuff. But I don't know. I never got into it. It's not my thing. But I recognize how important it is. You also start to see shows like Gurren Lagann come in, Tenchi Muyo, which is the first harem anime, which is not hentai. It's just one person that is loved by a lot of people for some reason.
So it's not an official harem. It's just like a word for like a bigger love triangle. Oh, thank you for gifting a sub to Drew and Georgia, and welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's also very true. Like no one should like it, but Evangelion has a massive following, and everyone seems to like it. But
I've heard music from it. I think
no, Urusei Yatsura is from the 80s. That's actually Rumiko Takahashi, who is the creator of Ranma 1/2 and also Inuyasha, which is another show that I missed, but it's there. These are also long-running shows. Inuyasha is Urusei Yatsura. Yeah, I actually saw the manga for Urusei Yatsura in the store. I was in the manga store the other day. I was like, oh wow, that's cool. But other shows I'm skipping around. Obviously, I haven't talked about Dragon Ball Z, which is started in Dragon Ball in the 60s and had an extensive run. The 90s
that was really big in my like high school years. Like that was
still big. It's still really big.
Yeah, I definitely see it around, but like it was like the one that you heard the most about. Like out of all of them, like if you weren't actively involved in anime club, you basically only heard about Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. And then also, of course, Sailor Moon starts in the 90s, 1992 to be specific. And this is the reason why the 90s were such a big time for anime in America is the fact that there's a little show that comes on a little bit later in the afternoon on Cartoon Network called Toonami. And Toonami's a show block that just plays anime stuff. So they play Cowboy Bebop, they play Dragon Ball, they play thank you. They play all this stuff, and this is for a lot of people. This is the first chance for Americans to really watch anime for the first time. They're like, "Oh, I get to sit down." Now, obviously, it's all kind of put out of order and things like that, but for the most part, it's there. Now, Sailor Moon's an interesting story because most of the other stuff. Oh, Hype Train finished. That was cool.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
I want to talk about this specifically because I wasn't going to talk a lot about Sailor Moon, even though I definitely can. I could go over that for days. But I do want to talk about the localization of Sailor Moon to American audiences.
Okay.
And some things that are problematic with it. Because Sailor Moon, when it was out in Japan, was a very LGBTQ friendly show. It was very accepting of all people, which was kind of cool about it, right?
Okay, that definitely makes a lot of sense.
So remember I mentioned earlier when things came to America, they tend to adjust it for American audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of those things was there's a couple of the senshis are dating each other. One of which is gender fluid. Their name is Haruka Tenno or Sailor Uranus, and then their girlfriend is Sailor Neptune, and they're together.
Okay.
They are very much a lesbian couple, or a non-traditional, non-heteronormative couple.
And we definitely cannot have that in America in the 90s.
Right. So what they did when it came to America is they did something which I think is almost worse. They because for some reason it's better in America to love a family member than it is to love someone of this, has the same bits as you, evidently. So that's terrible. So the American version of Sailor Moon for a long time had like, "Oh, this is my cousin. Aren't we just great cousins?" And they'd be like holding hands and like making out. It's erasure of LGBT, which was terrible. But that's not even the worst thing they did. For the longest time, you couldn't find the 5th series of Sailor Moon in America because there are characters called the Sailor Stars who are male in their regular form, but they transform into women in their magical girl form. And that was far too much for America, to the point where they couldn't fix it by making them cousins. So they just never showed it. They just didn't air it. So a lot of people thought that like Sailor Moon only had 4 seasons, and when Viz,
was that the final season? I thought it was
the last
for a
season
really long time. Oh, okay, like it got rebooted. Got it.
It got rebooted. It was redubbed and rebooted once with the Sailor Moon Crystal stuff, and there was obviously movies, but the original manga series for that is only 12 books.
Oh, wow.
It's only
That's
12
a surprise.
issues. So it's not a long series. So there's only 5 series of the original 90s anime.
Our tiny American brains, they'll explode if we see any sort of alternative lifestyle.
Yeah.
God forbid.
What they also did was they also had a lot of episodes in Japan. There's 300 episodes of the original series, of which 250 were available because season 5 didn't come up.
Right.
So
when
in
did
America,
that change?
what they did. What do you mean?
Like when did it start becoming available again? Like for the first time?
Like 10 years ago. Like you could get it on you could get it on like video if you knew where to get it. But
thank you for the follow, Kaladin.
Yeah. So there was that controversy, which was terrible, and Toonami, what they do in America, they also added a section at the end of it called Sailor Moon Says to give it some kind of educational thing, and they would kind of clip together things to put a moral on it. Those didn't exist in the Japanese show. That was only for the American audience. So because things were episodic, they had these morals. When it was on American, like there was no storyline you could follow in it because everything was just kind of put up,
Yeah.
Only much later, when we start to have like bingeability and people have DVD copies, do you get to watch the show in order and go, "Oh, that's cool." But yeah, when that show was on, and it's the same for Dragon Ball, same for a lot of stuff, they just kind of put up whatever episodes. So the reason you thought it was a longer show is because there's a lot of episodes, but they just replayed some, you know.
Sure.
So unlike shows like Dragon Ball or One Piece that are just long ass shows, Sailor Moon Short just got replayed a lot. You know.
That's impressive that they managed to like become so iconic with so little material, relatively. You know.
One Piece, by the way, is still being made. Like it started in the 90s and it's still going. That's why I haven't watched it, because I can't catch up to it. It would take me too long to try to catch up. I could do it, but that would be my whole life, pretty much. So good for you for watching One Piece. You know, if you can, I applaud you. But
I think you have to watch it at like 3 times regular speed, and like you have 2 episodes going at the same time. One playing audio into your left ear, another one playing audio into your right ear. Both of them going at 3 times regular speed, so you can get through like 6 episodes in the time that it takes for one. Minor issue with this, you'll have no damn clue as to anything going on, but you will get caught up.
Yeah. Also, too, in the 80s, going back to the 80s for a second, there's a core difference between.
There's over 1,000 episodes of Dragon Ball Z. Sorry.
I think One Piece.
Yeah.
Oh, One Piece. Wow. There's a lot of episodes of Dragon Ball Z too, but Dragon Ball is split into different shows too. Like you have Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z Black, you know, Dragon Ball everything.
Dragon Ball GT and Dragon Ball Super, I believe, are the ones that I know of.
So we're gonna talk about Naruto. That's coming up in the 2000s. Naruto is another long show. Like
I know that he runs funny.
Yeah, thanks to Area 51, right?
No, I knew before that.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Just by osmosis.
So in America in the 80s, we saw cartoons that were made to sell toys. That was their job. Things like He-Man, things like
Space Jam,
Transformers, you know, things like that. So in Japan, it was kind of different. Like they have toys, but the cartoons were not designed to sell toys. They just happened to have toys of the things they sell. Right?
Sorry, I could not resist. They had cartoons of the things that they sold. Yes, got it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they actually had storylines, and those storylines actually came from somewhere. A lot of them came from manga. Like someone would write a manga and go, "Oh, this is pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and make this into a show," and they'd sell it for a show. And that's when we get into the 2000s. We start to see more and more shows coming from manga. A lot of them originally came from manga too, but these ones specifically came. Shows like Naruto, for example. Full Metal Alchemist is from Bleach is from a manga, big time. Fairy Tail is from a manga. And then you also have other shows. You've got we talked about Trigun as well too, but like there's shows of that nature that are from just kind of unadapted stories. And then you do have anime that does come out in the late 90s, early 2000s that is based on video games. Big example of that is the anime version of Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh. Those are ones that are designed because they're already popular and like, well, I think we can build the story out of this, and then they do.
Kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean.
First time chat.
Oh, hi, first time chat.
Oh, hello, Yvonne Trey. Thank you so much for the. I think you followed and subscribed, or you followed. Thank you either way. Welcome, and welcome to the Smeagol emote that gets used a lot, as it should.
And then there's now we're getting into the point now where like I could go. There's just an explosion of anime out there now, and I couldn't even attempt to tell you every single version of them. It just isn't possible. But this is the point now where you start to see in the 2000s, people have access to DVDs, and they have access to things like the original version of Netflix, which was a
DVD rental service.
Exactly. So things became more easy to get, and because of that, and people already liked anime from when they were watching it on Toonami. They're like, well, I like this genre, I'm gonna watch it. And you started to see people really get into it that weren't there before, because it's just becomes ubiquitous as regular shows. It's not this like fanciful thing that you got to be a super nerd to like. Now you can just like it and nobody cares, you know?
Yeah,
Which
it
is
definitely
awesome.
became a lot more like seeing people with anime shirts and stuff everywhere. Like it became a lot more or a lot less niche.
Yeah, and the ones that are leading the way are shows like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, because they are like everybody has the Pokemon game, and if I'm wearing a shirt for Pokemon that's from the show, no one knows the difference. So like now I'm wearing an anime shirt in school, right? And people don't give you a hard time for it because they have their favorite starter too. Oh, it's Bulbasaur. Oh, it's Charmander. Whatever. Who cares? I care. I'm a Charmander girl, but anyway.
Everything became more accepted. Yeah, definitely.
This is the time where anime becomes mainstream. And now we're starting to get to the point where manga is becoming mainstream as well too. So like we have people that have like bookshelves full of manga that were like, I'd never read.
I feel like that's still trailing a little bit behind anime. Like I feel like it's a lot more common to meet people who are into anime than people who are into manga.
I think that's true too, but only because of accessibility. Like
yeah,
it's really
and also
hard
it's just growing. Like
and then even now you have streaming services for it. Like YouTube definitely helped in the early 2000s to get some of that stuff out there. But now I can go on to Funimation, which is also a studio, by the way, or Crunchyroll. Oh, Funimation, the nice thing about them is because they're also a studio and a streaming service, they have the ability to do what's called simulcasting, which is also another thing that really makes anime popular in America, because they're able to dub the show as it's coming out in Japan to English. So now it's the point where a show comes out in Japan, and then a week later it's available, or sometimes sooner, it's available in the US in English with English actors. And
that's
so
impressive.
so now it doesn't even feel like it's a separate country anymore, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. So you're starting to see this blend. You see more and more video game properties coming over. There's a lot of really cool artsy weird stuff. I like one of my favorites is Fooly Cooly, which is just spelled FLCL. That show is weird as hell and I love it. It's basically music style. Fooly Cooly, FLCL.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of that one.
If you have a chance to check it out, it's not that many episodes and it's just kind of cool. You know.
Okay.
That's what I love. FMA is short and dark, and this is what I was telling you about. Don't watch because it's got the dog thing.
Oh yeah, the Full Metal. Yeah.
Don't watch Full Metal Alchemist. I love it. I think it's great, but you as a dog person don't.
Yeah, I'm a frequent user of the website doesthedogdie.com.
Okay.
Very useful in choosing a movie, I will say.
Yeah. And now we're getting to the point now where animated films for a long time have been like the highest grossing films in Japan. There was a film called Your Name, which I absolutely love, that was the highest grossing film in Japan of all time. And it was an anime film that was only unseated by Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Mugen Train, which is another anime film. So like, and those films are starting to peek their way into American culture and get up there and start to be thought of for like Oscar nominations. Like Miyazaki has been nominated for Oscar with his things like Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away, which are all anime, you know.
Kaladin, thank you so much and welcome to here. I'm not sure what FLCL is.
That's Fooly Cooly.
Oh, Fooly Cooly. Okay.
Yeah,
you have to watch the episodes 2 times, as nothing makes sense in an episode until it is over.
It really doesn't, but it's so fun. It's so fun. And that's the cool thing about modern anime that I love, is that you don't necessarily have to be into anime to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to even know Japanese, but they don't Americanize it anymore because they literally can't do that because it's coming straight from Japan. So you get a nice picture into Japanese culture by watching these shows, and all of a sudden now you're bridged into this. You're like, cool.
Yeah.
I now love things that I didn't know about before. So you're in that world.
I can totally see how not having to go through a puritanical middleman makes a huge difference.
Yeah, when you take the network out of television gets better because networks are terrible. We just didn't have another choice before that. Now we do. We don't need a Cartoon Network to watch it. I can pay $6 a month and get a Crunchyroll subscription, which is an anime streaming service, and I can watch literally anything that I want, like constantly on tap. I can watch stuff that does not have an English translation. It's just in Japanese, and I enjoy it. And I'm actually learning Japanese because of it. A lot of people do.
Totally.
And so that's the state of anime where we're at now, is that we've got to the point where American art and American animation is starting to borrow from Japanese animation. We talked a little bit earlier about shows like Avatar. Avatar, shows like Samurai Jack, there's a show called Ruby, which started off as a web show and now it's its own anime. These are all.
Is that how you pronounce that? I've done RWBY. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Ruby. That's actually an acronym for their. Well, you're not. It's actually an American show. It's made by Rooster Teeth, the guys who did Red versus Blue. Same people.
Oh.
So it's an American show. It's just designed to look like an anime, but it's not. Yeah. And then the internet definitely helps get things faster, people than anybody, because you can get things really quickly. I can download an anime off of the internet. I can get one from straight off of Amazon if I want to get one. If I want to watch it and own it,
Yeah.
And like every streaming service, like even Netflix now has bought into anime. They've actually gone there and said, I'm going to go in and get anime produced. So they'll go and make a deal with the Japanese animation company, like TV Tokyo, for example, and they will go into Japan and give them money so the Japanese companies make the show so that they can then bring it to America and show it on Netflix. Or they'll show it worldwide, but they'll call it Netflix original animation, even though it's not. But whatever.
Would BoJack Horseman be considered? I just thought that was just like an animated show.
I mean,
like I hadn't really considered it as.
It's to the point now where there's elements of Japanese animation everywhere, whether you know it or not. Yeah. So it's hard to say, but there's things that are definitely anime. Yeah, Steven Universe, oh crap, guys, 100% anime inspired. They've even said so. Rebecca Sugar straight up said that she's an anime fan and loves that.
I mean,
shows
I don't think she could have like gotten away with a thing that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Avatar is the big one because a lot of people consider Avatar to be anime, even though it's not. It's made by Nickelodeon, but even the same people also don't think that the Legend of Korra is anime, even though Legend of Korra is made by the same people, but it's just the style,
I'm technically, my voice is in an episode of Legend of Korra, because really? I was at San Diego Comic-Con. And there was a panel for Legend of Korra. I think it was when it was starting. I'm not sure, or it was early on at least. And the sound producer, I think, was there. I was not really paying a lot of attention. Sorry. It was before the Firefly 10th anniversary panel. That's why I was in the room.
Oh.
So she was just like, we are going to be doing like an arena scene or something. And we really need crowd sounds. So I'm just going to give you directions and I need you to act like however I'm saying. Like, act like something really exciting just happened. Oh no, something bad, like stuff like that.
There's probably
and we were like scenes. Way up in the front too. So like,
nice.
Yeah, so I'm in there somewhere. Technically,
one of my good friends, Sean, was a production assistant for the entire run of Legend of Korra, so he was there all the time. So I talked to him a lot about it.
Please remind me where you are. -19 degrees.
No thanks. Big nope.
I would be perfect for any smart female anime character classes. Thank you.
I've actually made friends with a lot of voice actors now, and that's why I like watching the dubs, even though I do like sub stuff.
Yeah.
Because some people that I've actually met like in real life and had conversations with and I can like contact are like my old roommate, for example, who I used to live with, is really starting to take off in the animation world. He was in Breath of the Wild. He was on a show called Eden Zero. Like he pops up in things like Hunter x Hunter and stuff like that too. So
Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's right, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yikes. Well, good luck.
So that's pretty much it. That's kind of where we're at. We're kind of up to now as best we can. A super truncated version of Japanese animation and kind of the state of it a little bit. But I mean, do you have any questions or anything you want to know that I could potentially try to answer for you? I'll try.
I've kind of been asking as we've been going.
You have. You did very good.
Thank you.
And so has the chat.
I'm an active listener.
I want to ask the chat. Chat, I mean, some of you guys have already said this, but what would you say is your favorite anime? Watched anime and you like them, like what modern or classic or whatever. What is one thing if you just put it on right now? You're like, this is what I want to watch. Ooh, Attack on Titan's very good. Coming back in like a week. We get Attack on Titan coming back soon, which is awesome. Welcome to the NHK. I think is like a show about like nerds, right? Otakus. Pretty sure. Full Metal Alchemist. Yeah. Maybe I do want you to watch Full Metal Alchemist, Danny. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I do.
I mean, like, good luck.
There's a show called Wotakoi, which is also called Love is Hard for an Otaku. And it's based off of, it's like these people are like work friends, but they're all secretly like nerds in their own secret way. Like one's a cosplayer and one's a video game player, and one of them is really into like yaoi and yuri are same-sex love anime mangas.
Right. So like I'm familiar with like I'm not familiar with it, but I've heard a lot about it. Yuri on Ice.
Yeah, well, Yuri on Ice is literally like little gay boys doing ice skating. It's a very good show. It's very, very gay, but I love it. I love it. It's so preciously homosexual, and I'm so for it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've never watched it, but I have a lot of friends who like it, and I like have followed like Tumblrs and stuff that will post stuff from it.
I talked about this a couple days ago or on the Saturday chat, but there's a show I'm really into right now called Comey Can't Communicate, which I think everyone should watch if you get a chance. It's on Netflix. It's one of those shows that is being produced because Netflix is paying for it, kind of thing. So good. I'm a big Yakyuu fan, which is about volleyball, literally about high school volleyball. But it's so good. I've never cared about volleyball more, and I didn't like volleyball before I started watching it. But now I actually understand it to the point where I can watch a match and go, oh, I understand what's happening because of this manga. Oh, or on High School Horse Club.
Okay, oh, man. I'm gonna read through all of the ones that people have said in the chat. I don't know if Kaladin was suggesting Brotherhood or if that is in reference to something else. Princess Jellyfish.
Brotherhood is Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, okay.
So interesting thing about Full Metal Alchemist. Before I go too much further, we can go back to it, but. So Full Metal Alchemist started as a show while the manga was still being written. And so it got to the point where the show caught up to the manga. And they're like, we got to produce more show stuff. Kind of like Game of
Thrones.
Exactly like Game of Thrones. Yeah. This is exactly like Game of Thrones. So so they're like, we're just going to go from this point and make up our own shit. And they just did. They just made up their own stuff. Meanwhile, the manga's finishing, right? So the first 25 episodes of the original series is very, very good. And then after that, it's like, this is not great. I'm sorry, but I think the original 26 to the end of the original series of Brotherhood is terrible. So later on, a couple, maybe like 10 years ago, they're like, we're going to try this again, but we're going to finish, now that the manga's finished, we're going to do it as if the writer, who's called a mangaka, intended it to be.
Mangaka.
So,
I like that.
But the problem is it just dives right in. So for watching that show, what you're supposed to do, the real thing you're supposed to do is watch the first 25 episodes of the original show to get a perfect layout of how this world is, and then watch the new show completely and just skip the old stuff. And by that point, there's a little bit of overlap, but you'll have a better idea who the characters are, and then you'll get to the ending and go, oh, I understand. It's such a weird way to do it, but it works. And,
so the other ones mentioned are Irresponsible Captain Tyler,
which I've never watched.
Mushishi,
Mushishi,
Berserk manga.
What is Mushishi's? What is that one?
I don't know. Rhetoriku, you recommended that one. You want to say more about it in chat?
Yeah.
The Berserk manga. Sorry. And then
That was very. And the Berserk manga. The sad thing about Berserk is that the creator passed away before it was finished. So while it is very very good, it will never see an ending, which is.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Talk about
Moon's
gay
nothing.
and gender non-conforming Ouran High School Host Club. Dr. Stone.
High School Host. Do you know what host clubs are, Danny? In Japan?
No, I don't.
Host clubs are these places where you go and you pay someone to just kind of hang out in like a boyfriendy way, but not like anything sexual or make out with you. You just like, I'm gonna chill out with this really attractive person. You know, that's
nice.
Kind of what it is. It's like a boyfriend club kind of thing. And so Ouran High School Host Club is this high school that's very like a super prestigious school, and they have a host club as part of the thing where like all these like really pretty boys are hosts. And they find out that one of the boys that gets sing is actually a girl. She's just dressed in drag. And so that a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of a really fun gender play in Japanese animation, which is why it's not surprising that a lot of trans folk like me like anime. Because you see things there that you don't see in American animation, so there's a lot more representation. Not all of it's great, but there's representation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'll have to look up Mushishi.
It's Japanese folk tales. That's what Rhetoriku says.
I like folk tales. A lot of good stuff comes. A lot of Pokemon comes from Japanese folk tales, believe it or not.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So. What else do we see here? I've never seen Dr. Stone either, but I've heard good things. I've been wanting to check it out. I might check it out soon. Excel Saga. My roommate loves Excel Saga. I haven't watched any of it, but I will check that out for sure. I like the art in Mushi Butts. Butt Spot, you wacky person. You're ex to the subtitling for Ouran? Really? That's rad. That's so cool. What other shows did your ex work on? I mean, your ex is your ex. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but like, I like subtitling. I think it's a cool. I mean, you have to know a lot and type fast, but yeah.
I mean, subtitling for anime, which is being like translated, like that's an entirely different thing. And one of the things I like to do when watching anime is I always put on the subtitles and I put on the dubs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, obviously, I'm getting two separate translations, and a lot of times, I try to think of the, like, it trying to be like someone trying to get the gist of what the cultural meaning and translating the cultural meaning is versus someone trying to do like the more literal translation. And just like I basically work both of those into my brain as these are both what actually happened in the episode. Mm-hmm. So that can get a little confusing because when I think back on like an episode, I'm like, okay, this character responds to this person with said this, but that response doesn't make sense to that. Oh, right, dubs versus subs. Yeah.
Yeah, and again for me, like we're talking about preferences, I kind of prefer the subs, but I watch the dubs to support my friends. You know, like because I want them to keep working and stuff. So, and I do like the dubs, although I recognize that there's a lot of translation issues and mistranslation of things. But I'll usually go back and find what those things are and go, oh, that makes more sense. You know, I get it. So.
I don't know if it's a mistake at all. I think it's more of a just because you've got to match at least to some degree like the speed at which they're talking and how long they're talking versus like
they've
when you
gotten better about this. You know, they've actually gotten better to the point where they will be able to. Some shows even do double animations. I've heard like we'll do.
You're so good and cute. So Kaladin says my club would watch Shinesman dub with subtitles. You get two different stories. And then Rhetoriku says that they listen to the Japanese and argue with the subtitles. The technical term is lip flap.
Yeah, it used to be a lot worse to the point where like you made like it became like a joke where you'd watch an anime, stop talking, but the speech would keep going.
They
now they
really
don't...
make fun of it really well in Meet the Robinsons, in that like anime scene. Like, yeah, I thought that was very funny.
That does. Oh, Big Hero 6 is actually a manga.
I knew that.
Believe it or not. Yeah, it's a Disney made the movie, but it came a manga. So technically, it is Japanese style. You know.
Alright, I'm gonna call it a day. Get the textbook prompt picked out. Oh, that's so exciting, Jess. I hope you have an amazing time. And Yvonne Trey, it was lovely meeting you. Hopefully see you soon.
Yeah.
Good luck to both of you.
Thanks to everybody that joined on the raid and stuck around. It's awesome.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys and girls and non-binary folks. It is 8:38 in California, but it means it's...
so we're still good.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope you learned some things about anime today. You know,
yeah.
I have a lot of respect for what you do, Danny, because